Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Resilient You with Alicia Pozsony on Power 98.5 FM satellite radio. We have guests each week that will go over details that will hopefully help you in building your resilience. Today, we have a very special guest who is near and dear to my heart. You might be familiar with him as an NFL athlete as well. You may have seen him on ABC's The Bachelor. We have Clayton Echard with us. Clayton, thanks so much for joining us and welcome to the show.
Yeah, Alicia, thanks so much for having me. It's always so great to be able to have conversations like what I expect we'll be having today. So for you to allow me to be here, I'm very humbled. Thank you.
Wonderful. So humble, that's just one way to describe yourself. I know that when I did my research as a good journalist, I learned a lot. And, I'm real excited to learn about your resiliency through it all. One of the things that I learned is that you come from a close-knit family, and you're not an only child. You have two brothers, is that right?
Yes, two younger brothers, 2 and 4 years separated.
Okay, so that's interesting to know that you're the oldest child. I'm also the oldest child in my family. And I think there's something to birth order, but that's a whole nother discussion. But in one of the interviews, you mentioned that there was some competition in your house growing up. And I know that, people having relationship issues, sometimes that competitiveness comes in and takes over and affects relationships. So do you care to share a little bit of that detail?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So growing up in a household of 3 boys, everything was a competition. Of course, sports were competitive, and we would always see who could be the best athlete, who could throw the football the farthest, who could hit the most 3-point shots in a row on the basketball court. But it just extended into everything that we did. It became who could eat more food and faster. So in our house, my mom and dad would make meals, and once the food was gone, the food was gone. So I actually had to relearn table manners, I think, in college when I finally got out of that environment, because I was just scarfing down food. And it's funny, actually, this carried into my professional work. I would go into medical sales into hospitals. I'd bring my food with me, and I would put my arm around my food, so almost like protecting it. And I would have my face close down to the plate because I was trying to shovel it in as quick as possible, because I was hardwired my entire life to eat quickly so that the food you'd be able to eat it before it ran out. So everything was competitive in my house, and that was good and bad. I think ultimately now it's been great because that competitive environment pushed me to always try to be greater. I always wanted to beat my brothers. But then what I realized was it was just pushing me to challenge myself to always do more. And so today I still have that competitive nature, although I'm not, right now I live with Susie, and we're not sitting across the table seeing who can crush a pizza faster. But we still push each other to be better every day. And now I've learned to find healthy ways to compete. But it did take a toll on me at a young age, where I felt like I wasn't good enough because I often wasn't the victor that came out on top. I typically was losing a lot when I was younger.
Wow, that's hard to believe now looking at you. I know that you mentioned you've challenged yourself to do more. How do you think that has impacted you, in terms of, having brothers, having to compete, and then as you became older, when did you start with your fitness journey?
Yeah, my fitness journey, I would say, started back in 7th grade. That's when I started lifting weights, and that's when I started also becoming very aware and hyper aware, actually, of my body, and where I became very upset with how I looked. And that was 7th grade was the year that I realized I started having issues with body dysmorphia. I didn't really know what that term until later in life, but I just found myself always looking at my stomach, pinching other parts of my body that appeared fat to me. And it was something where I realized that it was putting me in a bad mood at the beginning of every day, because every day I go walk into the bathroom, I look in the mirror, brush my teeth, and I instantly see something I didn't like. And so that's when that all began. Fitness then became the avenue that I could take to hopefully be able to negate a lot of these negative feelings that I started to feel and have towards myself. But it took a while. I don't think I figured out how to correctly manage my body dysmorphia until I got my diet under control, which took up until my 27th birthday. I remember that's when I started to finally figure out nutrition. So 15 years is how long it took. It was a process, but I stuck with it, and I'm on the other side of it now, at least managing my feelings and the way I view myself now. I at least have my body dysmorphia under control.
Wow. So that's really, really brave of you to share that. A lot of people, when you have things that are, connected with your feelings, your emotions, you shut them down, because you can either avoid it and do other things to take your mind off of it, or keep it to yourself. You keep secrets, and you essentially lie to yourself. So 20 years it took for you to, I guess, come to terms with that realization. I can't imagine, living. Well, I had depression. I had things that came out in my life. But it was something that eventually I had to share with the world. And the process I know that I took, it was not easy. I had to be vulnerable, and I had to open up to understand what was going on with me in order to get ahead of it, right? I had to open up and be honest. So that's huge that you're able to do that now. And I know that's going to inspire many people. And that dysmorphia, is that something that is common in, do you know? Because I actually know someone who, I saw a bruise, and I'm like, how'd you get that bruise? And they told me, they confided in me, oh, I just do that. It's something I do. And I connected this, that, okay, that love handle was something that, because it wasn't the first time. And so it's interesting, because now I know there's actually, something having to do with that, right? When you see, you're not necessarily fat, overweight, but at the same time, it's a skewed view of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've looked into it a lot now, especially because talking about it, I want to make sure that my experience is my experience, but every experience looks a little different. But what I did find in the research that I've done is that some studies will say that there's just as many men that suffer from body dysmorphia as women. Women are just more comfortable with talking about it. And not only that, though, but beyond that, a lot of times people think that body dysmorphia is only pertains to individuals that are overweight, like in actual overweight by a scale or by a number. When in reality, you'll see some of the fittest individuals that have body dysmorphia, because that's the reason why they are so in shape, because they're trying to get to a point where they can finally accept their body for what it is. And so you'll sometimes see men that are 8% body fat and they have body dysmorphia. And I myself am a low body fat. And I had someone send me a message one day on social media. They said, there's no way you have body dysmorphia. You're way too fit to actually like think poorly of your body or view your body in that kind of way. And that's a massive misconception, I think, is that body dysmorphia can impact anybody, regardless of shape or size. And sometimes your most fit individuals are the ones that struggle with it the most, or just as much, I should say, because they're trying to rid themselves of that feeling. And they keep thinking, if I get a little bit more lean, this might finally be the point where I no longer will be concerned about the way my body looks, and I'll finally be happy with it.
Mm. Now I know, Clayton, you mentioned you have an online fitness program. do you go into any tools or tips, techniques that people can use in order to have a healthy body image in your program?
So for my program right now, I am really focusing on helping individuals find motivation to get to the gym, giving them a workout plan that makes them comfortable so they know what exercises to do and how to do them correctly. I believe body dysmorphia, I mean, that is something psychological that individuals struggle with. And I can only share my experience. But when it comes to giving advice, I'm very hesitant to, because I'm not a trained psychologist. I'm not trained or certified in that field to talk about it. So I try to utilize my platform to shed awareness on body dysmorphia, and then be able to refer people to professionals that can give them sound advice. And hopefully over the years, I'll be able to get a certification, or maybe I'll just through reading more resources, I'll be better educated. But I do like to say that to the professionals. My platform on fitness is more so about being able to provide motivation and fitness tools.
Wonderful. Well, I need your program.
All right, let's get you on it.
Right. I've always been one to I like biking, I like outdoors, but I have asthma. And so it's like I live in New Jersey, and we have the 4 seasons. We have the humid summers. And so, it's interesting with, my aging process now. I'm like, oh, I need low impact. I need, nothing that's too, but I know, a lot of people that really do turn to fitness and exercise, even as a self-care technique. So, it's when we look at someone such as yourself, and I hope you don't mind, I did admire your physique online, and my husband is aware of it, so it's all good. But, it's amazing coming from, my household growing up. We had healthy foods, right? My mother always encouraged us to eat the rainbow and eat the fresh things that were in season, and have, a well-balanced diet. And so, I was fortunate enough to have that. But a lot of people, I work with some youth who are in foster care and different situations, and, they don't have as much advantage. So something like fitness, exercise, even, walking or starting a program can be hugely helpful in, turning our self-worth around, giving people back where they might feel bad about what's going on in their life, or, even their self-image, right? So, so it's just amazing. And I'm so glad that you have this online program. And you mentioned to me that you have this platform now to be a physical and mental advocate to others. So do you want to share a little bit about your feelings on that and your goals?
Yeah, for me, I realized that I was never really big into social media prior to the show. I had 1,000 followers. I basically downloaded Instagram because it seemed that my friends all were getting away from Facebook, so I couldn't keep tabs on any of them. And so I decided to download Instagram. Next thing you know, I'm getting reached out to by a producer one day, or a casting agent, and I thought it was fake, ended up being the real thing. And here we are now talking, and all this crazy stuff has happened. So I see now the platform that I have. I have a big audience, and much bigger than I've ever had. And so with this many eyes on me now, my whole hope is that I can impact the most individuals in a positive way. I want to be able to showcase my life. I want to be able to show people the fun things that I do, but I also don't want it to just be that. I want to be able to say, hey, listen, I feel some type of responsibility now. I have this spotlight on me. How about I shed some light on ways to better individuals' lives, and so that we can all be happier as humans. And so I'm really just trying to utilize my platform to get the word out, to spread my message of, here are the struggles I've went through physically, here are the struggles I went through mentally. Hopefully through me sharing my story, you all will be more comfortable sharing yours. And I now I'm looking to go around the country and speak to individuals, whether it's schools, universities, whether it's going to businesses and corporations, those kind of things, and talking, mental health affects all ages. And my whole goal is that to help destigmatize the conversations around mental health, we just need to be having those conversations. So that's what I'm trying to do in person. That's what I'm trying to do on social media. Any breath that I can take toward trying to change that and break that stigma around having those conversations, that's my passion, and that's what I'm hoping to do.
Wonderful. Well, we have that in common. It's true that, the state of the world, I mean, there's so many things going on right now that, can really bring people down, even who have everything else going well in their life. So and that plus we're coming off the back of the second year of the COVID pandemic. And, people have been through a lot, either in the beginning when they were forced to stay at home, or now when they're forced to go back out into the world. So there are many introverts who are just, in different stages of their life. And, it's wonderful to be able to have these conversations. Now, you mentioned the show. You Before the show, though, I'm curious to hear about the dream that you had. I heard another interview that you did where you were in high school and you didn't get any D1 offers. So tell us about that and your resilience around that disappointment.
Yeah. Well, again, high school me, it's almost a 180-degree turn of who I am now. I was extremely pessimistic. I had depression. I had suicidal thoughts, stemming around not just body dysmorphia, but I didn't feel like I fit in high school. I came from a Lutheran school and was very much sheltered with sexuality as far as what happens when kids start to having hormones and having these talks. We didn't have those talks in our Lutheran school. So all of a sudden I went to middle school and I was way behind the curve and I was made fun of for it. I was waiting till marriage. I was to be intimate with anybody. And I got bullied for it. I was a smaller kid. I got bullied. I was awkward talking to girls. I didn't know how to have a good conversation with them. I tried too hard. And so maybe some people would say I still have trouble talking to women. That's why I messed up on the show. But all jokes aside, I mean, I struggled a lot. And so high school was tough for me. I also, with my middle brother, he was a stud athlete. He started varsity as a freshman. I was on JV as a junior. So he started varsity before I did. So naturally, my friends all made fun of me again. I didn't start varsity till my senior year. And thankfully, I had a coach that believed in me and took a chance on me. And he said, I've watched you and how hard you've worked. You haven't had the success on the field, but I've watched how hard you've worked off it. And I think you can be a starter on this team. You just have to believe in yourself. And he told me he believed in me. And I didn't believe in myself at that point. So I really just needed somebody to be in my corner for once because I couldn't do it myself. My coach that day, Coach Sumner, he'll always forever be a father figure to me. I love him to death. He believed in me and gave me that little spark that I needed to go out there and perform. And because of that, I ended up getting the starting spot at defensive end. I had a decent year. I didn't have any offers, and I thought maybe, I'll just hang it up at this point. But my last game, we lost, and I walked off the field, and my dad came up to me and he said, I barely ever saw him cry, and he started crying and he said, I'm so proud of you, son. And I just burst out into tears. Mm. And what's so crazy is I guess I never really thought about it, but I decided at that point that I wanted to walk on to the next level because, and my parents always loved me, but I finally got this recognition that I had been seeking for so long. I always felt like I came up short, and to see my dad get emotional and tell me that he loved me and was so proud of me, I wanted more of that. And so I decided to walk on. I made the comment and my parents' face lit up, and I know they were a little kind of like, okay, like, can you actually do this? But that's when all of a sudden I was looking for the approval of others. I liked football, and I'm glad that I ended up chasing after it. But really, I was chasing after other people's approval. That's why I went to the next level at first. to just, because I finally got the attention that I just felt like I was always in my brother's shadow, and it hurt. And I was always trying to just, yeah, hopefully get a little bit of attention, because I always felt that I just never was good enough.
Wow. That's such a, I want to say, common emotion. When you were talking about yourself in high school, or middle school, I mean, I was laughing because that's like every kid,
Yeah.
to an extent, right? They all go through
Mhm.
that awkward stage and, have to find their way. And the more support they have, the better. But at the same time, you mentioned your coach who was very, instrumental in building up your confidence. And it's so important. I just want to share with our listeners that it's important that we have um, support available to the kids today. Everyone's lives are so fast paced, and, the kids are under pressure. So just remember, if you have a child, if you have a cousin or a brother, it's important to make sure that they are able to talk about their feelings, because if they can open up, in those moments of inadequacy or, awkwardness, it's really going to help to curb some of the other problems that might go on. Clayton is sharing his story, and Clayton, thank you so much. You've talked about so many important issues, and just to know that you've gone through this and you've risen up in multiple ways in your career, and to see that you've come out on the other side, and now you're willing to give back. So, looking to do speaking engagements, producers, if you're out there. I know I have a few people that are in production, television production. Um, Keep Clayton in mind. Um, Clayton, how can people get a hold of you, just while I'm thinking of it?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is my Instagram. People, if you want to get in contact with me, you can go on my profile, click on the link tree, which is right below my icon, and you'll be able to go in there. There's says for speaking engagement. There's a tab people can click, and it'll take you to a couple emails. And I'm very responsive on both. And if people want to direct message me as well, you can certainly do that. But email will go right to me. And that's, I think, the easiest way for people to really contact me is just go to my Instagram. I do a lot of my work from there.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we know that you've pushed yourself to be greater despite some issues that you internalized, and now high school, right? So you eventually made it to the NFL.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think high school me ever thought that was a possibility. I mean, I didn't get a single college offer. Now, I had one D3 school that expressed a little interest, but I had no offers whatsoever. I was third team all conference in St. Louis. That's not even a conference anymore. That's honorable mention. So I was an average player, but nobody was looking at me. And in a way that went, because at this point now, all of a sudden I thought, let me go to the next level because I want to make my parents proud and family around me. That I realized that, well, if I walk on the team and I don't make it, nobody's expecting me to make it. So there's really no risk to it. If I fail, well, everyone expected me to fail. So anything I do beyond that is it's really just, I mean, surprising everybody, and it's a plus. So I walked on the team, and I made it. I did my research ahead of time. I educated myself. I said, okay, I want to make the team. So who did the school recruit? So I Googled all of their recruits, because you can find everything online nowadays. And I saw that those recruits were all 30 pounds heavier than I was. So I realized the first thing I had to do was eat a lot of food on the tail end of my high school career, my senior year, so that when I showed up to walk on the team, I was going to be the same stature as the players that they recruited. And I did. I packed on, gosh, not the right way, but I packed on in 3 or 4 months, 30 pounds. So I just started to take things one day at a time. I said, okay, my goal this year is to be asked back to come back the second year. That's my one goal. I'm not looking to start like let's make realistic goals. Let's set these realistic expectations. And then I just kept doing that. Every year was a little bit different. It was, okay, now this year I want to get my first live reps in a game. The next year was, okay, I want a scholarship. Next year I want to start. And I was able to achieve those.
So in setting those realistic goals,
yeah.
Who do you think influenced you to do that? Did you?
That's a great question. You know, I don't know. There was never someone specifically that I can recall. I've been told that a lot, right? Maybe it was something I read. Maybe it was something I saw on TV. Maybe it was something I just heard in conversation.
It
But
wasn't your mom? Your mother was a teacher. Didn't she
she
instill
probably
those
did as
values?
well. But you know what? I mean, here's one thing about me is I am a little stubborn, and it's sometimes to my detriment. Sometimes it's to my benefit, because sometimes I'll just keep pushing now at this point, even when, because my stubbornness is telling me to, and it ends up working out. But I remember there's a phrase that someone told me, and this one did stick with me. It was shoot for the stars and land in the clouds. And that was the idea, was if you shoot high, you might not reach those super high expectations, but you still land in the clouds, which means you still accomplished something. So that resonated with me. That's something that I've carried. And I thought, okay, hey, listen, just don't be upset if you don't achieve the highest point that you set for yourself. You're still making progress, and something is better than nothing. So I've always kind of implemented that mindset is, do something because something's better than nothing, and you'll be better than you were the day before.
Yeah, so that's very, very helpful, not to put too much pressure on ourselves when we have a goal or something we want to change in ourselves. I educate people all the time in that same method, right? We call them micro steps. And so you set smaller goals, and it builds the confidence that you need to keep going and to reach the next level. So so maybe it wasn't your mom.
My mom has taught me so much. I will say, my mom, to give her credit, my mom taught me the power of active listening. And I've realized that is so incredibly important, especially when we talk about mental health, because so many individuals, they just want to be seen and heard. That's it. And I think an incredible story of this that I recently watched a TED Talk on, was Kevin Briggs. And he was a highway patrol officer in the state of California. And he patrolled the Golden Gate Bridge. And a lot of the people that he saved, thousands of lives of people that were going to commit suicide, he stopped them. And more than a few of them said what caused them to step back over the rail and take another chance at life was Kevin's ability to listen and just be there for them in that moment. And I thought that was so powerful when I watched that TED Talk. I'm like, that is incredible. This man saved lives through just lending an active ear and being there for them, complete stranger. And so that shows you the power of what listening can do. Even if you're just a stranger, you can still save someone's life. And I've had people, not to that degree, but I've had people in my direct messages telling me, Clayton, you voicing this and talking about these matters made me feel not alone. And then they end up sharing their story with me. And through a simple response back to them, they're like, thank you so much. I feel heard now. And I can't tell you how much this meant. I'm a complete stranger myself, but I understand and have realized the power of listening is so incredible. And our words matter, but honestly, just giving someone the time of day to just vent and let them talk to us goes such a far way. And my mom is the one that taught me that. So my mom is incredible for that one. She's the first person I think of when I think of who's a great listener. My mom listened to me so much when I struggled. And I think I'm probably here because of her, because had she had not spent hours and hours and hours listening to me rant, there is a chance that I could have potentially taken a really dangerous course of action that might have led me to not being here today.
Yeah. And, every behavior is from a need. So, I work with some youths, and, with behavioral issues, there's a need behind it. And it's so simple when you think about it, but it's hard for people sometimes to get in touch with that. It's either too big or too scary. And, it's, thank goodness for Clayton's mother. It's very true to listen, when you're in relationships, especially. Communication is usually a downfall. And, not that, it's been proven, but a lot of men really don't appreciate communication, as much as women, whether it doesn't come natural to them or they weren't taught. So it's nice to hear you say that not only is it a valuable tool to help others, but it had a direct impact on you in your life. And so I just want our listeners to remember to take time, to listen. If you have a friend or anyone, someone's behavior is a bit different, just ask, hey, are you okay? If you have someone who's close to you and they say an off color comment, I think, it's important to investigate that comment, because there might be something behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And typically it can be a cry for help if someone's displaying or coming to you and saying something erratic. It may be there's a reason behind that. And I think it's so important too that as we are so distracted with social media, distracted with all these other different things in life that take away our attention, we need to make sure not to lose sight of the loved ones and the people around us that we care about. Because oftentimes, yeah, we get busy and we think, oh, I'm getting a phone call from a friend, I can't take this call right now because I have too much on my plate. And I've learned that, again, some people, there's stories of people saying they didn't take that call and it was the final call that their friend made. And so I think it's so important that we prioritize. What's more important, that we can always push off a task that we need to get done, but we can't push off our relationships, because that's ultimately, I think, what fulfills us in life. Is we're not meant to go through life alone. We're just not. And that's, as you're seeing it right now, as we've went through this period with COVID, suicide rates have went through the roof because we've been forced to be isolated back in our homes and away from the public. And this has caused a skyrocket and people and their mental health and struggling with it. So we're not wired to go at life alone. And because of that, I think it's so important that we make sure that we check in with those individuals that we care about, because you never know what's going on in their head. They might be smiling and projecting that outwardly, but that could be a complete lie. And I know that because it was a lie for me. Some of the pictures on my Instagram that I was smiling at and posting online, I was not smiling behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. But you stayed strong. And, that strength is something that I want to highlight in my book, Emotional Strength Explained. One of the things that the person goes through, and this book typically would take 30 days if a person works to journal in it. There's lines to write, there's questions that you're prompted with. And there's a part in here where they discuss what they think is healthy. And then they look at how they've been judged in their life. And then they really decide what is a good support system for them. So people have different personalities. Some people are introverts, there's extroverts, there's people who are introverted extroverts. There's all different, mixes, right? So, and it's important to have a place to write it down, because it might be something new. And the more you're willing to be open, you can get to that next level. You can become stronger and you can rise above whatever those challenges are in your life. So, and in your case, you were able to manage it. You had strength, and I think you had emotional strength, and then you had physical strength. Maybe your fitness was an outlet that helped propel you beyond these things and rise above them while they were happening. But then eventually, like 20 years later, you had to address that dysmorphia, right? Which is like something that I imagine must be like a weight lifted off of your shoulders.
Yeah, it absolutely has been. I mean, that weight is still there, but that weight has been lessened as opposed to it feeling like 1,000 pounds at a younger age. It now feels like 100 maybe. And it depends on the day. I mean, that's the tough part about body dysmorphia is I can have days where I feel on top of the world and I feel great and I love my body. And then the next day, it just, for whatever reason, it just doesn't, it looks different in the mirror. I don't know what I did differently. Maybe I ate some type of food that bloated me. I don't know, but it's like it just changes day to day, and like that's something that I have to live with the rest of my life. But I've found ways to manage it, and I've also found resources online, and I've realized through talking about it, I'm not the only one, and that helps me realize that. Well, like Clayton, listen, put it this way: everyone's hardwired a certain way, and you're not alone, and that's all that matters. Is like if I'm struggling, at least somebody else is too, but someone has found a way to manage it, and so there's always hope. And I think that's all that we need to be reminded about is with whatever we go through life, if we all knew that there was a light and it was guaranteed at the end of every one of our tunnels, then we would all continue to push forward. I think the fear is a lot of times is individuals think, I don't know if there's going to be a light when I get to the end of it. There might just be nothing but darkness. And that's, if we knew, if we were guaranteed a light at the end of the tunnel, I really do think we'd all push through. But what guides us there is hope. That's what gets us to the end of the tunnel where we can finally manage the struggles that we face. So I just hope that I'm able to provide hope, and I think others talking about their issues will help bring a greater sense of peace to individuals to say, hey, listen, like there is ways to work around what you're dealing with. There's hope.
Yeah, and it's so easy to be overwhelmed with whatever you're, going through. If a person's not in touch with their emotions, and if they don't have tools or techniques to deal, so many things could happen. To them mentally, their relationships with other people, their successes in life, and those of us who have been brave enough to go through our journey and our process and been open to what we can do to help ourselves, I think we are living proof of that hope. But it's true to find that hope somewhere. And just as Clayton mentioned, remember that you're not alone. There's someone else out there who has gone through what you've gone through. I'm going to be 50 in August, and I've been through a lot, and now I'm able to showcase what I've been through and inspire hope in others. So it's amazing. I have a series of books coming out for different situations where people need guidance. And Clayton, speaking of books, you have mentioned something about a book as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I'm in the early stages of writing one right now. But really what it's about is wanting to be able to show how my journey from going down a path of death and really going down that, where I had these thoughts of potentially just taking my life because it would be easier to do that than fight, to now seeing the other side where I am now navigating down a path of life where no matter what comes my way, I really do believe that I can always work through it. And it's having that belief in myself, which took years and years and years to be able to implement positive self-talk, to be able to find ways to change from going from down one path to a path that's going to bear fruit, that has bared fruit, that has given me a life that scared seventh grader that I used to be would have never thought that I'd be here today. So I've seen that it can happen. I've realized and I've found out ways that I've gotten to that point. And now it's almost the way I see it being written is for our youth, for that young age demographic to say, hey, listen, like, no matter what you're going through, you're very valid, and those feelings are valid. They are, and they're very real, and they hurt. But here are some ways that I think that you can start to get control of it. Understand you won't fix it maybe by tomorrow, but that's okay. Like, give yourself some time. Life is long. There's so much more than just what's going on in a week. You have thousands and thousands of weeks ahead of you to rewrite that narrative. But how do you do it? And that's where I'm really just excited to be able to share my experiences, talk about my lowest of lows, but how I was able to get to the highest of highs. but then also still talk about how, hey, I'm not in the clear. I still struggle, but that's life. And that's where I want to be able to just provide another tool for individuals to be able to access, to say, hey, listen, like, here's another story that I can always pull on or look at and remind myself that, once again, I'm not alone. And what if I have one more conversation? Instead of taking matters in my own hands, what if I just talk to one more person? Could that be the breakthrough that I need? I've had plenty of those experiences in my life, and I hope to share mine to show others that they can have that as well.
Yeah, and that's very timely in this, day and age. I think that your story is definitely going to be a huge impact to a lot of kids who are feeling down, and whether it's because you have that platform of fitness, and you've risen above, made it to the NFL, to the Seahawks. You then went to work and you were successful until you hit a point in your life where you were out of work for the first time in your life, and you know again, it's like we go through waves and stages in life, and again, if we don't have those tools, or we don't have the inspiration of others like yourself to motivate us and remind us that, hey, this isn't forever, and it's important. My mother taught me that you don't have to go through it, you can grow through it. And I believe that that's what message I'm trying to put out there as well. But again, I just was talking about a situation that I had a neighbor, and her son graduated high school, and I was congratulating him, and I asked him what he was going to do, and he said he didn't want to go to college. It was too difficult. And I said, oh, well, I write resumes, so I can help you with a resume if you want to go to work. And he said, no, I don't. I'm kind of just wanting to sit home. And I said, well, your parents are never going to allow that. So if you need help, let me know. What are you interested in? And he was interested in sports, and he knew all the statistics. He knew the players, the scores, every sport you could imagine. He was constantly, inundating himself with this information. And I assured him that there's something out there for him if he was willing to give it a try. Well, he didn't. His parents let him stay home. He started working out, so that was good. There was a gym nearby, so he'd go work out at the gym. Had a small group of friends, but I noticed that they were not the best of people. And I told the mom, but she was like, well, he'll be all right. He just needs time to sort it out. She quoted something like, boys don't turn into men until they're in their mid-20s. So she wasn't really concerned. Sadly enough, he ended up overdosing on drugs at the gym like 2 years later, and still living at home, and hadn't. Anyway, I feel so horrible because I only talked to him then, that one time. I'd see him in passing, but I just figured, oh, he'll come to me if he's interested in my help. Well, I wish I had done more.
Yeah, but I think you also have to understand that had you known, and sometimes you just can never know. I think people are so good at masking what they want to mask. And I just read a study recently. I was Googling what are the top causes of suicide, and why do individuals feel driven to do that or have those thoughts. And a lot of times the reason why they do is because they feel alone, and they're afraid to open up because of the perceived threat of isolation. And they don't want to be judged by others. So that fear alone is too magnanimous for them to overcome. So they think, well, I don't want to have to face the music. I don't want to have to face, criticism. So this is my way out, and this is the only way. But in that situation, I think, you have to give yourself some grace and understanding that you were there in that moment. Unfortunately, he must have not felt like he had somebody to turn to. Again, I don't know, and I don't want to speculate too much,
Mm-hmm.
but what we can hope it to be is to be able, the more that we talk about it and are able to talk about how our success, we found success through being vulnerable, and how being vulnerable doesn't make you less of a man, because that is something that maybe he struggled with. Was he felt that if he opened up, that he was going to be pegged as not a true man. And I can talk about on that all day, because toxic masculinity was all throughout high school, was all in the college football environment. It was the alpha male mentality. You don't talk about emotions. And if you got problems, you fight it out. You don't dare talk it out. Men fight. And it's like, that's not true, right? But that's somehow intertwined in our society, where men are just, it's like, you got issues, you got beef in high school, fight it out. Well, why? That's stupid. What does that accomplish? But that's unfortunately maybe still a part of our culture. It was when I was in high school. And I think we just have to work at breaking down what are the roots? What's at the very root of all this? And it's like, there's toxic masculinity. How do we address that? Well, we start having figures that look the part, maybe The Rock, or someone, a big, massive stature guy, and you take him into a high school and have him talk about mental health and talk about the struggles and depression and all that. And then you have these kids go, wow, like, there's no way. It's like, their mind goes bonkers. Like, how can, it doesn't compute. How is a guy like that, 6'5", 270, solid muscle, how is he talking about mental health? Men don't talk about mental health. Yes, they do. We have to break that connection that is built, and the misconception that I think youth, that they have when it comes to openly discussing it.
Yeah, and that's a wonderful topic. I can tell you that the youth of today, they're constantly on the social media, so much so that here it is, the end of the school year, and I said to my son, who's a freshman in high school, I said, "Oh, you have your yearbook, so this is a great opportunity to talk to people," and he's a little shy. Talk to people that you really haven't talked to yet, whether it's a girl, maybe a boy, whoever, whatever. But, I said, this is a great chance. And if they say no, then okay. But if they say yes, then you can talk to them, ask them what they're doing this summer. That's what we used to do. And he says, "But Mom, that's awkward. What if they don't want to sign it?" And I said, "So what? Then you say, okay, thanks anyway, have a good summer." And it's these little conversations that I feel are so important for parents to have with the boys of today. To let them know that it's okay to take a chance, to be out, to go out with yourself, talk to other people, and go through those experiences, because they're going to learn that they're not alone. They're not the only ones who feel weird about being approached, but that's on a small scale. But on the larger scale, it's so true. For generations before us, men had a certain role and women had a certain role. And, the men would smoke and fix cars and stay in one room, and the women would be in the kitchen. And, it was just a whole nother way of life. And today, we have people who are able to express themselves in terms of gender, and it's just exploding. And I think that talking about this, that I love that example of having The Rock tour the high schools to talk about, to tell the guys it's okay to talk about what you're going through, because when kids are sharing something behind closed doors with a friend, or texting it, or it's something that the other person doesn't know what to do with that. They just hope it goes away, or tomorrow's another day. They're not going through it, so they don't know how to deal with it. Even counseling, and if they go to a counselor, there's shame in that, because then they would think there's something wrong with them, when in reality that's not the case. So Clayton, thank you for bringing all this to light, and having your platform to be able to create change in the world. And I know you're going to do that.
I certainly hope so. Thank you so much for giving me the time to talk today. It's just incredible, and I'm just very appreciative to have had this conversation. It's one more that I think hopefully will impact a person or two and lead to some well needed change.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, Clayton, I know you shared your Instagram earlier. Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners today?
Um, I think again, I just really, outside of sharing ways to be able to access me and reach out and potentially get me to come speak wherever you are in the country. Outside of that, I really just, my message to anyone is to just really give it one more conversation to whatever it is you're struggling with, to just open up one more time to the right person. Of course, it's important that you find somebody that you trust, but just let it flow, let it out, and just see what happens before you decide. And don't make the assumption that it's going to go a certain way. Oh my gosh, that's a whole conversation for another time. I can't tell you how many times I've made assumptions and it never turns out the way that I thought it was going to. So I think people need to understand, don't project, don't expect someone to react a certain way. Just trust somebody, find that person and reach out to them, and just let it be that. Don't overthink it and give it a chance. And I think you'll be very happy that you did.
True, true. So, listeners, if you have any friends and family that you want to share these messages with, that would also be wonderful. Remember not to overthink things. Be an active listener. Um, give it one more conversation. If you're going through something, don't assume what would happen. The outcome, let the outcome be as it may. Don't project your feelings onto someone else. And if you are of the male gender, you can share your feelings with someone. I know that I've shared there's a text line. I should have it memorized by now. It is 74141. So if you are looking for mental help and you don't want to talk about it, you can text someone on that new mental health text line. And it's something that is important to use as well. There's resources on my website, www.aliciapozsony.com. As well, my radio show, Resilient You, on Power 98.5 FM, also is a good inspirational tool. Today, we've had about an hour with Clayton Echard, who is sharing his goals, his dreams of using his platform for physical and mental health and to do public speaking. He's going to be enhancing his online fitness program as well as motivating others, and also has a book started. So, Clayton, we're excited to hear more. I'd love to have you on once you get closer to releasing that book. And if you need any advice, let me know. I've already been through the process.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm in for it, but it's all a learning process in itself. And I know I'll come out the other side just happy that I took the initial steps. So I'm excited. Thank you so much, for having me. This was truly a joy.
Wonderful. All right, Clayton, thanks so much. Everyone, stay well. And remember, you don't have to go through it. You can grow through it.